You're listening to Security Pro Insights. Analytics, although not a new term, definitely a term that generates a myriad of feelings within the security industry due to the long-term use and inefficiency of many of the analytics of the past. However, today's guest, Lindsey Silva, brings a new perspective to how analytics are currently being used, how they've been improved, and shows us ways on how analytics can be used within our industry. Lindsey, thanks for joining us today. If you would, share with the listening audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Lindsey Silva. I am an application engineer for Blue Line Technology. I was a former sheriff for the city of St. Louis, and I currently left my position there to become a member of my husband's company, Blue Line Technology, where we have developed facial recognition technology.
What made you kind of go from being a sheriff to joining really a startup company, really?
Well, I really seen the growing need between public and private partnerships within security. And with that became growing technologies and analytics from that. Involving with technology was facial recognition. And my husband developed a technology for facial recognition detection and alert detection, which could seemingly help public and private sectors really grow into becoming a reactive force and becoming more proactive in their security policies and procedures.
Curious, this will help us understand how Blue Line was birthed. Your husband, is he a technology geek in this development, or is this just something he did on the side? What's kind of his background?
So my husband was within the United States Army in the Chemical Corps. He developed several technologies and web applications for the United States Chemical Corps. And from that, he became literally a techie junkie. He developed on his off time a facial recognition program that he first noticed that facial recognition, when it first came out, was kind of not meeting the standards of the public and law enforcement. And he wanted to make something faster. He wanted to make something more accurate. And over his personal time, he developed our facial recognition program called First Line with Blue Line. He got out of the Army in 2011 and joined our St. Louis City Police Department, where he is still employed today. And he ended up showing this technology to two retired police officers that owned a private security company. And from that, within 2 months, we took this technology and really seen the advantages of alert detection and threat detection within the public sector, with schools, with banks, with the corporate. And we wanted to make a technology that was affordable for the middle class and not just for the C class, that would be able to be more preventative in crime and within workplace violence issues and with threat detection. And that was starting in 2013. 4 years later, we are now sitting with a product that we are now developing for the corporate sector, for the public-private sector, within law enforcement, and within our schools and securities, all the way down to gas stations and our local C-stores that are right on the corner.
So, Lindsey, really the bread and butter of Blue Line Technologies is really all about analytics.
Yes, it is. Blue Line Technology with facial recognition has become more evolved in analytics because security and loss prevention have well evolved beyond the officer at the front gate. With that comes a lot of sheer volume of crime and its costs, along with the budget cutbacks in public sectors that have overstrained the public law enforcement agencies. Currently, right now, we have in 2009, there will be 1.2 million protective service employees compared to public police officers, which will only estimate to be 600,000. So how do we educate and govern this force that, along with providing quality training without increasing the risk to security? And a lot of that comes from the analytic portion of it. Development of joint associations like ASIS and ICAP and SIA and NSA have developed standards practices becoming repositories for security information and policies and procedures. So Blue Line created facial recognition technology that adheres to the policy of, if I know somebody is bad and is not allowed to be in that facility, if they are a fired employee or a workplace violence domestic situation, we're able to give that specific information to those guards that are at the front gate and acknowledge the threat immediately before it proceeds into the facility.
So you're working closely then with law enforcement, you're working closely with organizations, you're working closely with manufacturers, and even the industry associations like ASIS.
Yes, because the relationship between public and private sectors have, of course, only gotten stronger after 9/11. And so now we're looking into risk management and comprehensive loss prevention programs and security policies and procedures that analytics are beginning to drive. Now that we're giving these specific type of information to those security officers, now we're going back to the risk management. How do you want them to respond? How do you want them to react? How can analytics drive loss prevention? So more importantly, now we're focusing less and less on the enforcement and more on the anticipation and preventing loss through proactive and reactive programming. So within that, we are creating centralized objectives and giving the opportunity for public and private sectors to work more as a team, which then, of course, gives more levels of local to federal levels with security integration and operations to work together and to share all this analytical intelligence to control the problem and become more proactive. And with facial recognition technology, that is exactly what we're trying to do is can we give that officer the opportunity to know who and why they are there before the altercation even happens. They are more ready and more esteemed by their security policies of, if this is a threat, now I know what I need to do, or who do I need to address, or what alerts need to go out from that specific analytical data that has now been captured.
So, Lindsey, you kind of started already to the next question I was going to ask. Analytics is one of those words that I think everybody understands what it is, yet at the same time, they have no idea what it means. And what I mean by that, it's a very broad word. It can mean a lot of different things. So in our discussion of analytics today, I know you already mentioned facial recognition, but can we just talk about what are analytics for the discussion today? What are we talking about in a big picture to just help everyone understand the true definition of analytics today?
So analytics today is specific types of technologies that are being integrated on current security networks. It could be anything from geo-tracking to aggression detection or gunshot detection or thermal detection or in tracking. We're able to take these cameras that currently were just a broad overview of a wide area or a scenario. And now we're able to give reactive and proactive information from that same camera view. Thermal detection allows the ability to do tracking of different types of people, if it's humans, if it's animals, or if there's a threat coming, if it's a vehicle. So with that, the analytics that are being driven are specific types of information that are key and vital to a security policy or procedure or the officers that are on a site or on a specific location to become more proactive and reactive. And with that information, they can now take the next step of action before something actually becomes an issue or becomes a threat.
All right. Now, don't hate me for this one, but I have to ask. I have to keep the listeners in mind right now. Analytics, as defined and described by you just now, is really nothing new to our industry. It's been around. We've been hearing about it for 10, 15 years. But if I'm being very honest, early on, analytics just didn't work. They did not work the way we all dreamed they would work. Those who tried out analytics, in most cases, had failures rather than successes. How can we trust that analytics are actually better today? Where have they gotten better? And why are they useful today where they weren't 10 to 15 years ago?
Well, I would say that, around the 1950s, when private security became more of a normality, there were no such regulations or no guidelines to adhere to. So from this evolution has become from these joint associations that have created guidelines, created security practices and procedures. And from that, a lot of certification and education within analytics and within security itself to giving the opportunity of taking certain types of technologies and learning how to apply them properly within a security policy program or within the corporate sector. And with that education has grown into learning about the legal aspects, the human relation aspects, learning about preventative security, and really learning how to, if I gave you a specific analytic, if it was a threat detection, what are you going to do to it next? I think before, when this was such a hot topic and a hot item, there was really no practice and procedures behind that. We were giving the analytics to people. We were giving them the data they needed. But then a lot of people were asking, well, what do we do with it? What to do next? So I think from that learning process 10 years ago, we have learned how to better apply and educate our security practitioners on how to really be more proactive and how to engage the programs in totality, from not only implying that information at the head end of the camera, but how to build that and write that into your policy procedure program to educate those security officers on what to do. And the education, I think, has been key. The certifications that are now available that you can learn these type of technologies, and the councils that have been growing from each type of these associations have been developing how these analytics will be proactive and more reactive to you, and kind of giving the guidelines for corporate policies and government policies to be able to adhere to.
You mentioned a couple items in here that intrigued me a little bit. One being that you identified a problem of us not knowing what to do with the information or not thinking about what we wanted to do at the end. And I know I look at a lot of models, operational models, leadership models, management models. And one of the things they all say, in fact, I believe it's one of the 7 habits by Stephen Covey, it's begin with the end in mind. And it sounds like you believe one of the problems in the early years was maybe not the technology itself as much as we just didn't look at the information correctly and keep the right perspective. Did I understand that right?
I would say so. I mean, I think from what I have learned, becoming from a sheriff to now the private side of it, I have learned that there is a gap in that education. So creating more platforms to share these best practices and to collaborate on these common issues that we've had in this industry has became a great educational platform. I have noticed just recently that within some of our applications that we have within facial recognition, they're not used to now being alerted about these threats that are walking in. They have no policies or procedures that they've implemented. So we've had to help develop that for them, because now we're giving them that information that they've never had before, and they're not used to that. So there has to be some education behind that in order to train them, to train their managers and to train their security staff on what are you going to do with this analytic now that we're giving it to you. And, within that, these councils that a lot of these associations have created will increase the professional effectiveness of this, and also kind of look into the niche networks that are now being created through analytics. So that way we can contribute our expertise on what would be the best practices moving forward.
We're going to dive right into the very specifics of several of the analytics. And I just want to keep that out there for everyone listening. We're going to get very detailed. Before I do, though, I want to understand one last thing. Thinking about the end in mind, thinking about information, thinking about education, I believe one of the major problems in this world we live in today, let's call it the information age, we have information everywhere. In some cases, I believe it's almost information overload. I can get my hands on any type of information I want. The problem is, what do I do with it? How do I even manage it? How do I contain all this new knowledge and information to where it's actually useful and something that's applicable for life with what I want to do? So are there platforms that you're aware of that's helping with all this analytic information so it's not just, again, a bunch of data? How are we making it useful?
So I have become more involved in ASIS's security councils. There are 20 to 30 different types of councils that are all specifically centered in interpretive of what security is. If it is retail loss prevention to pharmaceutical security to, economical crime. These councils that have been created are from the leaders of today within security and within the security industry that can range from the people who actually invented the technology all the way up to security integrators and to, security practitioners who are currently involved in corporate security. Within that, this collaborative effort have created pretty much a informational resource that can be utilized and accessible to anybody within their standards and guidelines. They do daily publications that are available online that help kind of learn how this information and the analytical data and this new emerging Internet of Things technologies of where is it going, how is it evolving, and what to do with this type of information, and where is it being utilized with best practices. Currently, right now, I was invited to the Security Applied Sciences Council for ASIS, and I am probably one of the younger members that will probably be on this council, but for me, it is a growing opportunity to really evolve myself into where is this analytic technology going? Where is it moving to? And what are we doing to grow the best practices and grow white papers in order for everybody to learn from this new emerging technologies?
So what I really hear you saying then is we have come a long way with analytics. The development is probably ongoing. The policies are ongoing. The standards are ongoing. The systems to contain the information is ongoing. So we've come a long way, but there's still a long way to go.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's dive into this a little deeper. We've defined analytics in general. We've talked about how it's useful. We've talked about what we can do with the information. We've talked about policies and procedures and the need for all of that. But let's just dive into how some of this really works. I know your specialty, or where Blue Line Technologies got their start, is within the facial recognition side of analytics. Can you define what that means and help us understand some of the applications of facial recognition?
So Blue Line Technologies software first line has really evolved into threat detection, employee access control, and employee pretty much oversight. A lot of our technology that we have, we are able to detect a person if they are known, unknown, or threat within a tenth of a second. And with that knowledgeable information, we are able to provide the key instrumental people within the security organization, who they are and why they're there and where they are. That is crucially important because we all know that within biometric security and with access control, we are now looking for technologies that even become more stacked within two-factor modes, meaning that now within a certain facility, they want one or more credentials before you walk into a secured facility. we are able to provide a two-factor method to where we tie a specific credential that is given to an individual to their face. That is a great leaps and bounds, because before I was able to give my card to another employee, have them clock me in or clock me out, or just give my card to a specific individual to go get something out of a room for me. Right then and there, I don't know how many rules are probably being broken or violations that are being created, because maybe I have a different security authentication than my partner or my friend who I gave my card to. Now we're able to say, is that person at that door the same person who should have credentials in their hand? So that's where we created the two-factor biometric mode, which is going along the lines of fingerprinting, iris scanning. But facial recognition is also saying, is that person bad or good? So on the back end, we're able to still give the alert detection in terms of a threat or a domestic violence situation. That type of information is key and crucial to somebody who, as a sheriff who I was, we would see 1,500 different people within an hour's time span on a Monday morning. And we need to find those 10 people who have physically threatened to a person or an individual or to a judge. This type of analytics was able to watch these people walking through our magnetometers and signify to an individual who was a possible threat. For me, I already know his name. I already know who or why they may be there. And I'm able to intervene in a more positive manner than already creating an aggressive situation. And that is where facial recognition technology has really been driven. Is, can I give that information quicker to who needs it now in order to stop a threat?
Lindsey, this information you're talking about now, is it based on defining of facial expression and body language, or is it predefined through another database where you load photos of individuals that you know are not always up to goodwill?
We actually pre-define on people who are, of course, as you say, not up to anything good. This is sold to the private companies to where they have every right to put in people that are not allowed into their facility. If it's your everyday shoplifter, to somebody who is a physical threat to your clerks or to your employees, or it could even be utilized as, a positive manner. It could be the VIP of your corporate coming through, and you want to know their name, you want to know their favorite drink, or you want to know what meeting room they need to abide by or to go to. You can actually improve your concierge management, but where we really have seen it utilized is within our convenience store applications and our grocery store applications, because shoplifting and theft are a major crime, especially around St. Louis. Usually 90% of these crimes are masked, and they're masked with guns. We've utilized this technology to where you just have to show your face to get into a 24-hour store at 1 o'clock in the morning. Unfortunately, the criminals who want to try to impede the store and create theft, they're not going to want to remove that mask and show their face to get in. So essentially, the theft just moves on, and they do not want to impede or even compete with facial recognition technology capturing their face. The grocery stores have noticed now within one store, within 2 weeks of the application, he has arrested 2 shoplifters. And now he's able to, save his ROI. He's able to interact with these customers and politely tell them that they're now trespassing because they have been arrested before and their, services are not wanted there. He's able to become a more proactive measurement in stopping, retail theft and retail crime. So we actually read over 365 points on a face, and you are pre-registered within the system if you're good or bad. Within that, comments can be made on why they're in there and who they are. So we can provide that information and provide a record of that transaction being made when they enter in a facility or when they enter in a store.
Based on your experience, it's a great application, and I appreciate the case study. I think one of the very difficult things for all security practitioners to deal with is that line of trusting someone yet being skeptical. Also in the retail space, the line of excellent customer service and security. So how has this successfully been implemented where the everyday customer, the good guy, doesn't feel like he's being treated like a bad guy and feel like he just does, he's no longer treated as a guest because of the security measures that are put in place?
I have seen positive results in our security applications within the public. Our grocery stores that currently have it, they've actually received customer feedback saying that they feel more safe and secure with this new type of analytic that has been driven. Positive manners again within our nighttime convenience stores. I have been able to return clerks who have been theft at gunpoint, and they can't lose their jobs because they're single family, parents, and they need that nighttime job because they're making more money on the night shifts. I'm able to return them and to return their safe and security to them at nighttime because they feel much more safer. I would say an amount of women at our convenience store applications have told us that they feel much more safer shopping at night because this is their last store on their way home or their last gas station that they need to stop at. And they just felt more secure walking into the facility. They're everyday average customers. They start to smile at the cameras. They know what they're there for. I think the store owners and the managers have been very upfront with why the security has changed with their clientele, and they've received positive feedback. So for me to kind of go back to these stores during these case studies and now looking at all these smiling faces, the kids are waving at it. They know that it's not an invasion of their privacy. They know why that security has been implemented and been put in place. And they've been receiving nothing but positive from that. And I think that's the great thing is that we're telling them we're not watching you every day. We know that there's criminals out there that have, wanted or warrants, especially within a court setting. I think they know that if they go to court, they're probably going to get run. And, they're either going to have to pay their bond or be arrested. We're not looking for them. We're looking for the ones that are threats to that specific company or that private company. Those are the ones that usually come back with a physical intent for harm or violence. And we want to stop them because those are the ones that we hear on the news every day about a disgruntled employee walking into a facility and unfortunately taking his action out on his prior employees or his prior management staff. If we know those specific people, can we change their dynamics and can we change their habits? Absolutely. And that brings that involvement of, the customer care. Can we change how the managers interact with those people before it does get out of hand? Can we stop a threat in a more positive manner, walking up to you and saying, Lindsey, we understand that you stole from our store before. Unfortunately, since you've been arrested, you're no longer allowed on this premise. You're just preventing that right then and there. But now you know their name. You're able to talk with them in a more positive manner. And that type of interaction can go much more in great lengths than having the lather happen.
So what I hear you say is that many of the guests are willing to give up a little bit of, let's call it their freedoms, in order to feel safe and secure within the environment they are shopping in.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Now, those are a couple great applications, again, on facial recognition. Is there any other applications that come to mind where this can be used just to help our listeners understand, hey, that might help within the scenario I work with each day?
So there are other great analytic technologies that are out there. One that I am beginning to start to work with more is something called sound intelligence. This is an analytic that can be based on the camera edge itself. So it's not necessarily another product that you have to go out and buy and another hardware that sits next to your camera application. It can actually go directly on the edge appliance. Sound intelligence really modeled their linear technology off of the human ear. So the ear performs a frequency of analysis of incoming audio signals. So the advantage of that is that now that they can really, in both time and frequency, guarantee if it's a glass break or if it's aggression detection or if you heard a gunshot. And with that, I think the great technology is this aggression detection that really listens to its surrounding environment. And when it notices an audio change within a voice, when it becomes more strained, there's a specific type of, strenuous activity that you do within your vocal cords that sound intelligence is listening for. We all understand that within gas stations, there's a lot of, violence that can happen at the gas pumps, if it's gang violence or if it's just a domestic violence. Can we be able to tell somebody that there is an aggressive situation happening and be able to be proactive, sending police officers in that physical area in order to assess a threat and hopefully mitigate the situation? I think that is a great technology that can be used on train station platforms or airports at the baggage claims. And we see if somebody is becoming aggressive or getting into a fight or getting into an altercation with a single security guard, and can we give that analytical information to the other security guards that are near and already being deployed to that specific location?
When we start talking about sound, I get a little skeptical about the capabilities and the ability to really capture the right wave, for lack of a better word. That may not be how it works, but in my mind, I see sound waves coming in and this technology determining that it's aggression. Is this a perfect technology, or is just part of it just understanding that, yeah, it may miss every now and then, but we're still weeding out lots and lots of data to get to what we actually want?
I think we are still weeding out lots of data to get what we want. Sound intelligence has become very advanced with their audio analytics to become more reliable within automated detection to combat crime and antisocial behavior. So what is that antisocial behavior? Is it, gunshots, glass break, like you said, with graffiti or with aggression? Can we really be able to base sophisticated sound detection and analysis software to isolate these specific sound patterns from the overall ambient sound? Absolutely, yes, we can. It's growing, and this is a new emerging technology that I can only foresee to get better in the future. And with that, of course, there probably are some limitations. Probably you can't really stick this right next to a train platform because the train sound coming itself could interfere with any type of communication that could be next to it. So I think, again, that comes with education and training and learning maybe how to apply this type of analytic in specific scenarios to where it will be successful and it will succeed in order to give you what you need.
This goes right back to how we started talking about education. Yeah. And of course, the whole purpose of this particular podcast is just educating the security professionals of what's out there, the technologies, how they work, where the applications might be. So again, education, education, education. There's nothing that's perfect. Not a human being's perfect, not a technology's perfect, and that's why everything's evolving and growing.
Absolutely. I would definitely agree with that, because technologies before, they were late and great, and a lot of them were put up quick in order to hopefully solve solutions or problems that they currently have. But I think that's where they failed, because we really never were specifically centric on what type of application was needed in order to achieve better security. I can say, just again, with facial recognition technology, I'll say right now, this is not a technology for every single door or every single camera. So with applied learning with that, I will go to sites and go, okay, this is where you need to be effective. I can't have my camera 40 feet up in the air overview of your whole parking lot. I will tell you right now that facial recognition technology will not work. You're going to lose your money. But at the front door, to where people singular walking through, I will definitely be able to be successful, and I'll tell you if they're good or bad.
Lindsey, I don't typically do this, but I want to give a shout out to you and a shout out really to your organization, in the fact of one thing you do and do well is when your technology is implemented in a scenario, you do not walk away from that. You stay very close to that end user. You stay very close to the integrator that may have implemented the solution. And a lot of it is, just as you said, based on the applied learning. You understand that all things can be improved, And so rather than walking away from something, you're just right in the middle of it. You embrace it. You're quite frankly, you're passionate about the data that comes from it so that you guys can continually improve. And for that, I just want to say I appreciate it because there's not many businesses out there that go to that level.
Well, thank you for that. And I think that again comes back to rounding about to the education is that I walk into security integrators who are typically used to just putting cameras on a corner and getting a broad overview of that certain space or that certain area. I want to be able to educate my security integrators of the facial recognition technology or analytics in general, of if they're applied in a specific setting the right way, that camera now becomes a multi-factor technology. It gives an overview. It's listening. It can give perimeter surveillance. It can do facial recognition all at once. And that, for me, giving that to my customer or my client is 10 times greater because there is a cost effectiveness to this. Because most of these are bootstraps. They have a problem, but do they have the money to adhere to the solution? Most of the time, probably not. So you're working with a budget, and providing that type of education and the case studies and the numbers coming out of that is great. I think right now with my grocery store, we're now able to have him communicate with law enforcement. We had the chief of police come back to his facility and said, "These are our first 2 arrests. How would you like to see the data being handed to you? You're the police officers. You're the ones who are going to be receiving this information. How can we give a best practice to my client in order to make your job easier, his job easier, and my job easier?" And from that, I take that study and I move it on to the next grocery store. And we continue to build. And it's the same way with my convenience stores. And it's the same way with my corporate security. We're able to give this data much more specific and much more detailed. And how detailed can we get? We don't know yet. I mean, we're still learning all of these type of analytics throughout security. And from that, we're really changing policies and procedures. And so now we got to know, okay, what do we need to change in order to be more effective from the client side all the way to the security integrator side? So I really do engage myself in these clients. I call them weekly, monthly. I'm pulling numbers from them or pulling, crime stats from their local area to kind of show them, look, the crime is still happening around you and you're not getting hit yet. Or now, guess what? We're able to change community policing around your area. You don't have no vagrancies or theft from vehicles happening on your lot. We're not only able to remove the specific threat, but now we're able to remove specific types of crime off your property. So getting that vast knowledge to them makes them feel more secured, but then it also helps them teach and train their managers or their security personnel moving forward of why this is important. And I think that's why we've had such great outcomes with our the public interacting with our systems, because we're able to tell them exactly what it's there for. And that, we don't care about the everyday people. We really don't. We care about the people who are creating issues or creating threats or creating problems. I guarantee you the general public would like it if we reduce, the loss prevention and ROI, because of course that keeps the cost down for them, for, having their shopping experience. Or the grocery store or even the convenience store who could potentially lose their liquor license because of theft happening so currently at their store. We want to keep those small stores up and running because we know their vitality within their community. And with that, the community becomes community policing. So how do we bridge that gap and, let the law enforcement know what these guys are doing in order to prevent crime and give reactive information directly to them?
Lindsey, I kind of need to wrap this up. And you mentioned your concern about the small guys. And there actually might be some listeners who are saying to themselves, who is Lindsey Silva? Who is Blue Line Technology? I've never heard of them, and why should I care what Lindsey has to say? And I just want to help everyone be a little more aware of the industry. We get our eyes focused on the big guys often, and I won't name them all, but you can take your big name camera manufacturers, your big name NVR providers. What I don't think many understand is that most of those companies are not developing their own analytics. Behind those big names are companies like Blue Line Technologies that's actually the analytic resource behind it all. And so I just wanted again to put that out there so everyone understands we are listening to a true expert in the field, someone who knows her stuff, and there are many big names that you might be hearing about their technology, but really what you're hearing about is Blue Line Technology. So, Lindsey, I want to thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge with us on analytics. I want to thank you for just helping us understand this a little better, your candor and honesty in the subject. Can you give us a few ways to connect with you to learn more about, just who you are? It's all about the network, and maybe be able to reach out to you if we want to learn more about analytics.
You can also go to our website at www.bluelinetechnology.com. You can see all of our senior partners, learn more about our technology, learn more about Blue Line and what we actually do as a force multiplier within analytics today.
Lindsey, one of our favorite ways to connect is through LinkedIn. Are you a LinkedIn member?
Yes. Yes, I am.
So you can reach out to Lindsey on LinkedIn. I will have her link connected to the show notes. Just make sure you let her know you heard her on Security Pro Insights podcast, and that will help her ensure she feels good about allowing you to be one of her new friends. With all that said, we are out of time, and I do want to thank you one more time for all the knowledge you've provided us today, and I look forward to seeing you at ASIS.
Thank you, Scott, for the opportunity today.